Hello, my name is Abna Owusua Serbo. Thank you for joining us for We Need to Talk today. Please remember to subscribe if you've not done so. Please share so others can join in the conversation for today's show. Please remember if you're anywhere in the state, any state of the US, it's tax season. That means that we're about to get something back from Uncle Sam. If you need someone to file your taxes for you, which you can get it even in advance, please contact Explicit Tax Services LLC. Again, Explicit Tax Services LLC. Their phone number is 682 299 8938. Again, it's 682 299 8938. Please remember when you contact them, use the code WUSUA Tax 2024. Again, it's WUSUA Tax 2024. They file for individuals and they file for businesses as well. I also like to encourage you, if you're anywhere in the state of the US, any state of the US, and you're looking for the opportunity to experience the American dreams, please contact 817-751-0428. Again, it's 817-751-0428, and you will be shown the way to experience the American dream filled with honey and milk. Today, it is a pleasure for me to welcome back a returning guest to this show. Her name is Mrs. Betty Jempe. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist and supervisor. She was with us 2 years back when we discussed parenting, but today she's with us to discuss something completely different. So, welcome, Auntie Betty.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. So, if you please just give a brief description or a little bit about yourself for our audience that are new to you, and we'll get the show going.
Okay,
All
so
right.
Mrs. Rubo,
Yeah.
may I have the pleasure to call you so?
Yes.
The last time you met, you were just Abna, but now
Yes.
you are Mrs. Rubo. Anyway, so
Thank you.
uh, talking about myself, just like you said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapy supervisor. Now, today I'm talking about marriage. So I would like to talk to the audience about, myself concerning marriage. I've been married to the same person for over 40 years. So my experience about marriage is not only from the book. So it's also from experience.
That's great.
I have two adult children and I have two beautiful, wonderful, adorable grandchildren. I think in a nutshell, that is it about me.
That's good. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know in the past couple of weeks we've had varying opinions about relationship and marriage, but today, like she said, not only are we about to hear from somebody that in the books is experienced, but this is someone that has also practiced it and living it live. So I am so excited to have her here today. And one thing that I'd like to say before we get started, I was on social media this past week, and as I was preparing for the show, I was just looking at some of the things that people say, and I came across this post that really like sunk to me because it was tied to what we're gonna discuss today. And the person said, nothing hurts like being married and still feeling lonely. And I think our conversation is going to highlight a bit of that as well. So please remember again to subscribe if you've not done so, and definitely be part of this conversation today by dropping your comments, your questions, and we will be very interactive as we have this conversation today. So, Auntie Betsy, when we say marriage, what does that even mean?
Okay. So there are so many forms of marriage today in
Okay.
this world, but today I'm going to address only one type of marriage,
Yes.
and that is the marriage between a man and a woman, heterosexual marriage. That's the only thing that I have information about that I specialize in. I do not specialize in
All
any
the
other
other
kind
ones.
of marriage.
Wonderful.
So when we talk about marriage, marriage is when a man and woman enter into a union voluntarily before, witnesses or a witness, to the exclusion of others. So that is marriage.
Okay. All
It's
right.
voluntarily. Nobody forces you into it.
I love that you just used that word voluntary because one of the biggest controversies or like uh show that I've done this year is the one where my guests were talking about marriage and why it's important for young adults nowadays, especially in our African homes, to marry somebody within our culture. Like it is such a big thing in our community that parents have this mind tied to one way of like their children going into marriage. So when you say voluntarily, in terms of our culture, when parents are so hang up on I want my child to marry somebody within the culture, is that something that's advisable for a parent to do, to have that expectation and also push their children in that direction?
In fact, the topic you gave me was how to maintain relationship in the
This
marriage.
is, by the way,
So if I address that, it's going
it's
to
gonna
take us
deviate us
off.
from our topic.
But I
Okay.
will simplify it by saying, no matter how much your parents want you to do,
Mhm.
who to marry and who not to marry, in the previously in the olden days when people didn't have formal education and the community was very small, things were very different, but now it's not the same. So what I would say is that no matter how much your parents are pushing the two of you have the last say. That is why I say that it's voluntarily.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that before I forgot. Okay, my next question is, why is it important for a young lady and a young man or anybody at any point in their life, heterosexuals, to get married?
Okay. Now, this issue, I have that addressed, but I thought I was going to address relationship, how it starts, and how marriage starts. But since I will answer your question
Okay.
as you want it to go. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to look at your question from the Christian point of
Yes.
view and then from the cultural,
Point
voice
of
of
view.
view.
Okay.
Okay. So, to the Christians, First Corinthians, and I think I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna, in First Corinthians chapter 7, verses 8 to 9, Paul said something like this. Okay. It is good that you remain single like me, because Paul was speaking from the time that he was single himself and serving the Lord. And he was saying that it's okay, to remain single like him. But if you cannot control yourself, it's better to get married rather than to burn with passion. He actually used that word burn. Okay. So marriage is important. Honestly, if you want to enjoy sexual pleasure, you need to get married according to a Christian standard
Mhm.
and principles. Then, from the cultural point of view, it's there, but we ignore it because nobody is looking over our shoulders to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Now, in the Asante culture, I do not know any other cultures, I mean, cultural background of your audience, but I'm speaking from their Asante
Chance
culture
culture.
that both of
Yes,
us
from.
are from. There's a term used to describe a child that is born out of wedlock, and we call that child mpenaba. Okay, that is not a very good term.
No.
Okay, when we are called mpenaba, it's not something to be proud of. So if you can sexual relationship, outside marriage is celebrated, if it's encouraged, why would they even have a term like that for a child born out of wedlock? So it is very important to get married for, and also other, various reasons. For if you have a child, it's very important that the child is a child raised by two parents. I know some single parents are doing a great job, but it's very advantageous when a child is raised by two parents.
Thank you so much. Again, please be part of the conversation and drop your comments and your questions as you are watching us live today. We are talking about marriage. So, Auntie Betsy, I know that I jumped the gun and I went ahead of you in my question. So, I'm going to take us back so that we don't miss our steps in between and give you the opportunity to discuss where we were heading or where we were before I jump you ahead. So, please, yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about marriage and relationship
Mhm.
today, okay? And there are many forms of relationship. The relationship I'm addressing today is relationship in the marriage and how to maintain it. And I've already defined what marriage is. So, what is relationship? Relationship is the state of connectedness, okay, how you connect with people. So, in every given marriage, uh, talking about the marriage that we know, so in some cultures, the marriage takes place before the relationship begins. Yeah. No, when they do, some cultures do marriage arrangement. When they arrange the marriage, you get into the marriage before you start knowing each other. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about a marriage where the relationship started, building a connectedness before you agree to marry. So let's look at how does all connectedness begin. Now, every relationship starts on communication and is maintained by communication. And if it can also be ruined by lack of communication or inappropriate communication.
Okay.
Very, very important. And then at the beginning, these communication are very superficial because you are now getting to know each other. Your questions are just about basics, what do you like, what your hobbies and stuff like that. So it's very basic. Now, as time goes on, the relationship gets more profound. Now, how does it get profound? When you get, into depth, into the relationship, you start developing emotional connectedness. Now, how do you do that? This is where you start, putting expectations, having expectations of each other, respect, trust, loyalty, and honesty of each other. You put expectations on each other because you are getting to know each other more. And then the romance starts. And what is romance? It's the feeling of excitedness when you are in the presence of each other, even when you are not in the presence of each other, by thinking of each other, you feel like you want to connect. Okay.
Yes.
So when you the relationships start getting deeper, this romance gets, more, profound.
Yes.
And then the characteristics of romance also start showing itself. That is physical connectedness, like, and I'm not talking about in bed or not in the bedroom connectedness, holding hands, hugging, friendly kisses. And I'm not talking about any other kisses that would develop into something else, okay? And then spending unending time together. When you get to this point, that is where people start talking about maybe, the acceptance of each other. You accept the personality. You feel like, man, I can spend the rest of my life with this person. So you start talking about marriage arrangements, and then the marriage takes place. Now, so this relationship is started, except one thing, hopefully. And then when you start the relationship, the marriage takes place, then sexual relationship is celebrated. Okay, that's what I know to be the normal process of excuse me. So the question was, how do you maintain this relationship? At the beginning, before the marriage, it's so rosy. You have time for each other. You can spend time on end with each other. But look back and see, how did you start it? You started by communicating. You see? So number one thing to maintain relationship in a marriage, communication should continue.
Okay.
It should be open, and you should be able to continue the communication about everything that concerns the two of you.
Okay.
Yeah. And so uh, you are able to, when what happens in the relationship, sometimes you will get a shock. Like you learn something different about the person's personality traits. Talk about that. This is where things start getting fishy. When you observe something new and you shy away from it, later on it's going to come back to backfire you. So talk about your observations, the new things that you're finding about each other. Very, very important that you bring that to the table,
Okay.
how you feel about that. And the next thing is to keep your emotional involvement mutual. This is what I mean by keeping your emotional involvement mutual. there should be a mutual respect
Okay.
for each other. When you don't talk over each other, you spend time listening to all that the person needs to say before you respond. That maintains respect for each other. And another thing also is to celebrate your differences. You know, in some cultures, it's like the woman is responsible for this and the man is responsible for this. I know a couple that the man was in charge of cooking. He loved to cook.
Hmm.
And the woman would do the laundry. And the woman will not allow the husband to even approach
Touch the
the
laundry.
laundry or wash clothes because you put all the colors together. And before you come out,
That's
you
the
know,
son of
all the white things will come out yellow or red. So,
yeah.
and they were okay with that. And most, you know, in most marriages, the woman is in charge of the cooking.
Mm.
And if it's okay with you, that's fine. I've also seen some couples that the woman is in charge of the money. She pays all the bills, but she doesn't misuse the money. In some couples or marriages, it's the man who is in charge of the money. Some couples, they share so that they can, all of them will have, you know, if one is not there, one will be able to do what the other one does. So what works for you, that's what you celebrate. You don't compare your marriage to anybody's marriage. You do what is good for the two of you. And another thing is both partners have to work together to maintain the house.
Okay.
The chores. It's not only the woman who needs to clean the bathtub or, you know, the kitchen or whatever. I mean, whoever is available, and if the time allows that, it makes the relationship, you know, cordial and also mutual. Then another thing that also maintains the relationship is transparency about finances.
Mm.
Now, at this point, I would like to share a word for especially we Ghanaian couples. We have responsibilities at home.
Mhm.
Okay, it's very, very important that the couples become transparent about how much money is going to who and where. Is don't sneak around. Whenever it can bring, you know, big problems into the marriage. So transparency about finances is also very, very important, especially in our Ghanaian marriages. And I hope it works for anybody else also. Then another thing that helps to keep the relationship going is also to keep up with your couple's time and me times. Americans you have that term, me times. Yeah, especially when you have children in the relationship. It's very important that sometimes you let someone take care of the children and you, the couples, have a date, you know, and keep it up. And it all depends on your affordability. How can you how much you can afford and how many times you want to be out together because you're talking about paying for childcare if you don't have it for free. Okay, so if you feel like you can go out, you know, as couples every weekend and you can afford childcare or you have it for free, some people will have to do it maybe bi-weekly or some people have to do it monthly depending on your affordability and what is available for you and your resources. So that one is also very good to help keep the relationship going. Remember when you started, nobody was, you know, attached to you. So you want to keep
Yeah.
enjoying that,
Mhm.
okay? Then the next thing, and very, very important, is sexual satisfaction should be maintained only within the marriage.
Okay.
Only within the marriage. And I can confidently uh, you know, emphasize that because I have dealt with cases that sexual, you know, seeking sexual pleasure outside the marriage ruins the marriage. And it takes a long time for trust to be developed again
Okay.
or to be earned again. Then another thing is to maintain the relationship in the marriage is to continue to learn each other. No, people change. You think you know somebody, no, you don't until you live under the same roof
With the
with the
person.
person. And I believe most couples will agree with that. When you come to live under the same roof, continue to learn about each other's personality, their likes, dislikes is going to be different. And also, here I will highly recommend something called love languages. You learn the person's love languages and speak the love language to honor the person. You may not even like that. If somebody likes touch, touch is one of somebody wrote a book about love
Five
languages. It's
love
called The
languages.
5 Love Languages. You may not like the love language, but you don't speak the love language for the person you're speaking. Let's say if I'm speaking your love language, it's not about me, it's about you. I speak that to honor you. And so it's very important that people learn or couples learn how to speak each other's love language to honor the person you're speaking to, the recipient of the love language, not you. So these are the things that I have about how to maintain the relationship
Okay.
in the marriage.
I think I should have brought a pen on the show to be writing down all my questions because as you're talking, so many things were,
We're coming to your
yes, were
mind.
coming to
Okay.
my mind, and I hope I don't forget some. But my first question was about the part where you said sexual satisfaction should be enjoyed within the marriage. Here we are talking about when couples seek that outside of the marriage, right? Like once they are married and they
Mm-hmm.
go seeking satisfaction outside. That's what you mean. That it
Yeah,
shouldn't be that way. Okay.
yeah.
And I really, as much as I really want to stay on course, I mean, it's just the topic what you said is really pinching me to kind of deviate a little bit.
Okay.
But there are couples that unfortunately they have visited that part where you're saying they should not, but they have visited the part, and at that point, how are these couple? How can they maintain or how can they get back on track or on course of the marriage when one of the party of the couple has already gone outside there to seek,
Infidelity.
yes,
Okay.
sexual
Just
relation?
like you said, you would deviate a little bit. This is something that I have dealt with myself. Not myself like dealing with the infidelity
Yeah.
in my marriage. Talking as a
As a
counselor, I'm a
counselor.
marriage therapist. So I have dealt with situations like this. It's very simple. It is doable that you can, develop trust for each other again. It all depends on the one who committed the infidelity, and also the offender, the one who is offended. Okay, it's very important that in a state like that, you need to seek professional counseling because there's a way to forgive. There's a saying that forgive and forget. I have no clue what planet that person came from, the one who said forgive and
I
forget.
forget.
You never
Okay.
forget something that you have experienced before, but you need a professional to help you, forget, not forget, but to put that behind you, appropriately, so you don't bear grudge or hurt. You need to be healed, but you can't heal by yourself unless you need some help, professional help to heal from that. And the person who has committed that offense also needs some healing
Yeah.
because the person deals with guilt. Okay, and I don't. I have read the Bible a little bit. I'm not a theologian. People say something like self forgiveness. I don't know if it's that biblical.
Biblical.
Yeah, but you need help, to deal with the guilt and the forgiveness and rebuilding the trust in the relationship.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned about both parties have a role to play when they want to get back on track. So there are couples where the one that is committing the offense is not even ready to seek that professional counseling, but the one that is on the other end wants desperately and so much to work on the marriage. They are the one that's standing and fighting. And I've heard a story from somebody in the distance that said they're ready to fight for their marriage, but their partner is not ready, and not they're just ready to give in or give up because you cannot fight, like you can't fight for somebody that doesn't want to be fought for. So how does this person approach, or how does this person work on this marriage?
Well, like you said, we are deviating
From
because this is my area and it's gonna get us away if you want to keep discussing this. Again, there's a way the person that is seeking for help, okay, needs to seek counseling, professional help by herself first. Yeah, the person will help her to look into the situation if it's worth fighting or if it has reached a stage where they need to go their separate ways. It's not an easy place to be. Yeah, it's not. Because the professional will look into the basis of the offense, what caused it. There's a lot to be done about a situation like that. And I don't have time to
To
go
go over that.
into that,
That's
but yeah,
okay. That's
yeah,
okay. I think that's another
yeah,
episode, a topic for another episode.
yeah.
Okay. So the love language, just recently, I think during Valentine's weekend, my husband and I were driving home and we were talking about the five love language. And I was telling him what I have observed personally is we sometimes get comfortable trying to speak our love language to our partner.
Mm-hmm.
And in our case, my husband is somebody that's more about touch, and I'm more of uh somebody that does not affection, but I like acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
But he always tells me, I show you all love all the time. I want to hug you. I want to hold your hands. I want to do this. And I'm like, no, you're not showing me love. And he's like, yes, because in his understanding, because he speaks that love language, he feels like he's showing me that. And me, that's on the receiving end. That's not my love language. So sometimes it gets even I told him it gets annoying because that's not how I want to be shown love. So to a couple that's watching us that's in the same boat, how do we communicate that with our spouses that hey I mean you like it this way but I don't like it that way, or like get it across that it doesn't make the person feel offended or feel like okay this person is too much or they're not appreciating my efforts. Those
Wow. I hope you got your husband's permission to
things. To share that,
mention
I
him
told him
that. He
that we
said
need to
that.
have
Okay.
that
All
conversation.
right. So I don't say this to brag, but by the grace of God, I think this is the place that I have handled over time. I mean, multiple times.
Okay.
A lot of couples will come to me and say, oh, we already know our love languages. But when it comes to discussion, you can tell that is way different. Knowing the love language is way different from how to speak it. And how do you learn to speak each other's love language from each other? The person, if your love language is an act of service, it's very important that you spell it out to your husband exactly what you mean by act of service. Now, one thing we need to know, act of service to you, two people may have the same love language, but the way it's spoken may be different. So if your love language is act of service, men are not very creative. And I don't say this to condemn you men, okay? Please hear me out. You have to tell them, you know, they now when you look at I don't know when it gets to maybe Mother's Day or your birthday, they struggle what to
Yep.
give you as a present because naturally they are not like that. They're straight, most of them. Some men are very creative. They are the right minded part of
Yeah,
people.
anymore.
Yeah, but most of them tell me what you want and I will do it for you. Okay, so it's very important that you spell out what it means to be, spending time, quality time, or act of service, or touch, or what is the other one? I've forgotten. I didn't mean to talk about that, but
Okay.
I know it's quality time, act of service, touch, and receiving gifts. Yeah, and even with the receiving gifts, you need to spell it out. What kind of gifts do you want to receive? So, like I said, you have to spell it out. But because of shyness, what I have realized as a therapist is this: when it comes to touch, most of the time I have to give examples. And then I give the example, oh yeah, that feels good. That will feel good. Yeah. So this is your husband or this is your wife. Within your four walls, nobody's listening to you. So open up and tell them, touch me here, or this is my, what I need. So that's how you learn to speak it. But I will emphasize that you may not even like it, but you speak it to honor the person that is receiving the love language. That is why you need to learn from the person who is receiving it, how they want it to be spoken to.
Thank you so much. All right. Um, Pat's entry said, God bless you. Amma
Oh,
said, I think trying to incorporate each other's love language and trying to receive it and understand it. And Fosti said, I believe the person who commits infidelity may also have reasons that push them to that point. In healing, I believe that must be looked at and resolved if possible. All right. So it comes back again to communication. But as you were speaking about communication, you said this same communication can make, it can also break a relationship. So can you please explain that part where you said that communication can also break, lack of that communication can also break a relationship?
okay. Yeah, let me repeat my what I said.
Okay.
I said that every relationship
Mm-hmm.
starts or begins on communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's maintained by communication. It can be ruined by communication
Okay.
for lack of communication or inappropriate communication. Now, lack of communication, this is what I mean. There are some people that when, and okay, let me back off a little bit. There's a saying that in our Santi culture or language that even the teeth and the tongue, they
The
fight.
fight, yep.
They fight, yeah. When you are close, under the same roof, it's inevitable that you would disagree
Mm-hmm.
or be at loggerheads at sometimes. So, and lack of communication is this. Some people have the tendency of giving, their partner silent treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That is one, I'm not saying it's the only one. That's one of the worst things you can do to each other. Lack,
The silent
silent
treatment.
treatment. No, that is lack of communication. And another lack of communication is not talking about the problem, shying away from the problem and talking and you even make it worse when you talk to other people about communicate about the
The
problem
situation.
in your relationship instead of talking it within the relationship. So that is what I mean by lack
Lack of
of
communication.
communication.
Okay.
Now, the inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
communication is this. Sometimes you communicate by you not listening to each other. You make assumptions. You feel like you already know what the
What they're
person
gonna
is
say.
saying. So instead of listening and doing active listening, paraphrasing to your partner to make sure that you're hearing what the person is saying, you draw conclusions. And that can, before you are trying to resolve something, but it flares up and becomes worse. It's because of lack of, inappropriate communication about whatever is going on. And it's okay to agree to disagree calmly and respectfully. Yeah, it doesn't mean you should agree to everything all the time. There may be some couples that vote for different political, groups, but yeah, so
Yeah.
you agree to disagree. That is an extreme way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, extreme example. Yeah. So it's okay to agree to disagree or disagree calmly. And also, there are certain situations that you have to meet each other halfway. It's not all the time that you have to be to the all the way to the other end to absorb what the other one is saying. So that is what I mean by inappropriate
Appropriate.
communication.
All right, thank you. I've heard in the past when some people will say, oh, when you are in the heat of the moment, or if you feel like talking is not gonna work, just be quiet. And what is the difference between you being silent that time versus the silent treatment? That when you are in the midst of argument with your partner, you just shut out because you don't want to overstep or say or do something that is not gonna be very helpful in the end.
Okay. The difference is this. When you feel like, a discussion has been heated up and you are emotionally charged, okay, it's okay to say, honey, or whatever you call your partner, I think I need to, I need a break. I need time out now. Let's get back, to discuss this later on. It's okay to say that. If you do not say that and you leave, Not with attitude, though. You're not going to stomp out, roll your neck and your eyes at your partner and walk away. That's not what I'm talking about. You leave calmly, but you get back later on. Silent treatment is the one that goes on hours and days. Some partners give their their
Spouse.
partners silent treatment for weeks. That's what I mean by silent treatment, but it's okay to walk away. In fact, it's very wise to walk away when you feel like you are emotionally charged and whatever is going to cascade out of your mouth, it's going to be regretful. It's better to walk away.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just, when you said you can tell your spouse, honey, uh, excuse me, I need a timeout. I'm just in my head imagining in the heat of the moment how much grace it will take you to calm down, to hold yourself and address your spouse. But even in doing that, in my mind, I mean, it will calm you down because you cannot say, honey, I want to be excused and still have that passion or that desire to want to exchange more words that's gonna end up in a very bad situation in the end. My next question
Okay,
is
hold on. Let me respond to that.
okay.
It's doable because I have worked with couples that did not have that at the beginning,
Okay.
and it takes practice. And I said, watch your triggers. If something triggers you and you know the relationship is going where, I mean, the talking or the discussion is going where you don't want it to go, give each other a break and say stuff like that. And people have come back to me that, Betty, that works. So if you practice that, if you have never heard that before, you will not do it that. But if you have heard that before and you want to put it into practice, it's doable.
All right, audience, everybody that's watching us is doable.
And you
So
don't have to
please.
say honey. You can say, I need a break.
I think when you put the honey there, it will give you that break to
Exactly.
pause whatever is pushing you to do or say something negative. Okay, thank you so much. All these things that we are learning on the show is for free, but you will not find it anywhere on the streets. So please be good and kind to share to anybody that is in a marriage or is interested in getting in a marriage. All right, Antibety, my next question is, how do you not lose yourself and still take on all the roles that come with marriage? Example, you become a wife, you become a husband, a mother, a father, an uncle, because once we get married, especially in our culture, we inherit all the family members. So somebody might be coming from a family where it's just myself, my spouse, and my children. But now they're married into the whole village, and now they're taking on the role of uncle, they're taking on the role of auntie, and now, by the grace of God, after marriage, they take on the role of mom and dad. How do you not lose yourself in the midst of all this?
A very good question. But Mrs. Sribo, in my experience, there is no anything like lose yourself. Anytime I encounter this or I deal with individuals about this situation, it's not that they have lost themselves. Okay. Life is like a book.
Okay.
You write it in chapters. When you move from one chapter to another chapter, your roles change. You have not lost yourself. Okay. This is what a lot of people complain about. Well, when I was single, I could go out. I didn't have to ask permission or tell anybody I needed to go here. I just pick up my purse and then go wherever I need to go. Okay. When you get married, that's a new chapter. The roles will change. Your responsibilities will change. You are accountable to somebody, just like he is also accountable to you. It's not losing yourself there. And when a child enters the relationship, that's another chapter. That is going to take more time away from you. Have you lost yourself? No. Your roles have become more. And so it's very important that you redeem your time very well. You plan your time to take care of these roles. So this is not about losing yourself. It's about having different roles or being in a different chapter in your life that takes more time. Because anytime I hear I have lost myself. It's like I'm not having time for myself. Okay, just like I said before, there's a me time and couples time, but you can arrange and have time for yourself and relax and then come back more refreshed. But there's a warning here, especially those who are listening, a warning for both men and women. The me time, you have to be very careful with your me time because most me times you spend with other people.
Mm.
Be careful whom you surround yourself with during your me time. Now, first warning goes to the men. This is my experience. Some men will spend their me time with their drinking buddies. Before you know, the drinking will turn into something more serious and evil to your relationship. And also make sure that your me times do not involve the opposite sex. Because if you are a guy or a woman
Mhm.
and your me time involves maybe a recreational, activity that involves the opposite sex, mind you, your wife is not there and your husband is not there. So be careful how you interact with people during your me time. So something that is supposed to freshen you up, to make you come back, feel refreshed and more energized, is going to bring evil to your relationship.
Thank you so much. I really love that emphasis, and thank you so much for some of us or like younger adults that are now pursuing marriage or about to get into marriage. I think it was really necessary that we heard that word, um, I lose myself, because we tend to hear that a whole lot. And like you said, we now take on different roles, which comes with different responsibilities as well. And sometimes I think in our culture we don't celebrate the new chapters enough, and makes us feel like once I take on a new role, I become inadequate in my previous role. And in essence, I'm losing myself. And sometimes it makes you, as young women feel like, um, I have let go of something that is important, and what I'm taking on, because it's a norm or because it's an expected chapter of life, is not even worth it, or maybe I shouldn't have, or maybe I mean it's not even necessary. I can do better by embracing my previous chapters. And it's I thank you so much. I guess
Yeah.
that went out to me as well,
Let
because
me,
okay,
okay,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Let me add something to this.
Okay.
See, when you find yourself in a situation,
Mhm.
the interpretation you put on the situation would determine your emotions, and your emotion would determine the action you will take. If you find yourself, you have this beautiful baby, but you have to bathe the baby, a doctor's appointment, all these things, it's going to take a lot of time. Instead of focusing on that and say, oh, this is a blessing that I'm enjoying, and you go, oh, I don't have time for myself. See, then you will develop a different emotion. But if you look at the child as a blessing that people are spending thousands of money to get, and I've got mine for free, you will enjoy that because the interpretation you put on the situation, the interpretation you put in that chapter that in which you are, will make it more enjoyable than a complaint.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope that we, the audience, are learning a whole lot. And me, myself, in this chair, I'm learning a whole lot, especially also on the me time, when you said we have to be careful of the people we surround ourselves with during that time, and making sure that the opposite sex doesn't come in, because again, that can also lead to other things that doesn't even need to be in the relationship. Thank you so much. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you've not done so. You can watch all old and past episodes. And if you're enjoying Mrs. Betsy today, please, you can go back on the channel and watch when she came to talk about parenting. Once you get your nuggets for marriage, please go back and watch parenting. It is a definite eye opener and very educative for everybody of all ages and all walks of life. My next question, Auntie Betsy, is how do you maintain the bond, the relationship between the couple over the years? Because like you said, in the beginning stages it's all rosy. Now we've come to live together, known each other. Now I know my where my spouse, how my spouse does this and how my spouse doesn't do this. How do we still maintain that bond and that butterfly that we started with and that joy that was making us always wanting to be in each other's presence.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you mean you how to make the relationship as rosy as it used to be.
Yes.
Okay. Well, another thing, one thing that we need to consider is this. When you the relationship, I'm sorry, is like a tongue twister. When the relationship have lasted for a while, remember your body is also growing.
That's for sure.
Okay, your hormones are not the same as it used to be. So we need to put all that into consideration. So if certain things, if the passion or the burning is not as it used to be, some things sometimes it's natural. Okay. However, okay, what is making the relationship not rosy? That's where the communication needs to continue. Once you spot something that is making the relationship drawing apart, it needs to be addressed immediately. And if you attempt to address the situation doesn't work, seek professional help. That's my response to that.
I hope we are all enjoying, we are all learning, and I hope we are all listening and taking this and going on with life with this. Faustina said, I agree, or I believe they were still discussing the infidelity in marriage. And somebody said, great job to the team. How can I donate? All right. I'm sure we will talk about that in the very end. But thank you all for being part of this discussion today. Marriage definitely is something to be celebrated. It's a union that enhances our life. And unfortunately, in this day and age, the definition that some people are putting on it just doesn't make it well. But we that are in it, we know that it's an experience that you would not want to miss in this life. And so it is our hope that everybody also joins in and enjoy it as well. Please remember to drop your comments. Please remember to drop in your questions. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Owusuwa TV. Again, it's Owusuwa TV. Remember to share as well. Auntie Betty, our time is almost up, and I'm trying so much to behave and discipline myself by not deviating from our topic. So I will just give you the opportunity to give us your last words in terms of everything that we've discussed today and anything in regards to marriage that you want to tell us or the audience that's watching us live today.
Okay. I have last words for prospective partners. Okay, those who are in courtship, okay, which has been discussed, during previous got really heated up. Okay. If you are in courtship, the relationship is very rosy at that point. My advice to you is keep a journal of all the things that you are enjoying together and keep it as a reservoir, as you enter into the marriage. So in the future, when you plateau, which we didn't get there, when the marriage becomes a routine and it's like there's nothing more to do, look into the reservoir, all the journals, the things that you kept enjoying, and keep the marriage going. And also remember to communicate. Then for all married couples, as soon as you spot changes in your marriage, something that is not desirable in your marriage, immediately seek professional help. Don't wait until it's too late. Okay, the moment you start disconnecting emotionally, it's like a small crack. When you wait, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the farther away you get, that the harder it is to come together again. Even it takes more work for a therapist to help you to get together again. So when you spot changes, okay, when you observe changes that are not desirable, seek professional help immediately before it gets worse.
Thank you so much, Auntie Betty. But finally, can you please put your information down for anybody that is interested or seeking professional counseling as well?
Okay, this is online. What I would say is that if anybody needs my help, contact Mrs. Sribo and she will give you my information. I don't want to put too much on online
I
right now.
understand. I understand. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us live today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope you learned a whole lot because I did myself. Please remember if you're anywhere in the 50 states of the US and you want to get something back from Uncle Sam during tax season, contact Implicit Tax Services LLC. Again, contact Implicit Tax Services LLC. They file for individuals and they file for businesses as well. They will give you your money in advance if you do not have the time to wait. You can contact them on phone at 682-299-8938. Again, it's 682-299-8938. You can also remember to tell them your code is WUSUA Tax 2024. WUSUA, WUSUA, Tax TAX 2024. Again, it's WUSUA TAX 2024. Please remember also if you're in the US and you were looking for the American dream, the one that you were promised before you came to this country, or the reason why you get up to go to your 9 to 5, you can contact us at 817-751-0428. Again, it's 817-751-0428. And someone will talk to you about achieving, experiencing, and enjoying the American dream. My name is Abna Owusu Asrebo. Thank you so much for joining us for We Need to Talk. We will be back again next week, 2 p.m. Sunday. Please remember to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Owusu TV and subscribe to receive again.